Good morning. My name is Spencer Barclay. Welcome to the first session on the Bible study of the book of Jude. Normally, if we'd be doing this face-to-face in an interactive group, but that's not possible due to COVID-19, so we thought we'd try this format and see how it works out. We can still do some interaction if we wish through the comment section on the Facebook page or the web page and see if there's any questions or comments. We'll try to get back and interact with that as best we can. Thought we would do it perhaps by Zoom, but that does require everybody to be in the same place at the same time, and I'm not too sure if you can really file those away for future reference. This way at least we can record them and archive them, and people can access them at a later date if they so wish. Anyway, I thought we'd do the book of Jude because it's a short book, only one chapter, and that'll give us a chance to get our sort of feet wet in this format and see how it does. I thought I'd do the book of Jude from approximately 5 different ways. The W5, if you want to use that term. The when was it written, who wrote it, to whom was it written, why was it written, and what can we learn from this book for us today. The first 2 sessions will really be somewhat of an introduction because it's important to really look at the way the book is formatted, the way it was laid out and why it was laid out before we get into the book itself. And I'm going to try to do these in short sessions, 5 to maybe 15 minutes each, and see how it works. So, when was it written? There is no real definite time known as to when the book of Jude was written. Some people say it was written as early as 50 AD, others as late as 90 AD, but the majority of people state that it was written sometime probably between 63 and 66 AD, or in the early 70s. Those who favor the first time frame state that because the destruction of Jerusalem is not mentioned in the book, and therefore they felt it was written before Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans. It was also very similar to the 2nd chapter of 2nd Peter, and therefore they felt it was written around the same time. Those people who feel it was written after 70 AD, or in the mid-80s, state that because of the type of comment that's made throughout the book. And this book is really one of warning, one of trying to tell people to watch out for falseness in the church. And we'll get into that more later. But this type of falsehood came into the church primarily around the 80s, late 70s and early 80s AD, and therefore they feel that this book was written around that period of time. There's nothing mentioned in the rest of the Bible about the book of Jude, and there's no time frame given in the book itself. Many of the early church fathers who mention the book of Jude do not actually mention anything about the time of its writing. Therefore, it's somewhat speculative as to when the book was actually laid down. So, most of the comments we can consider is the fact that, one, it was written while Rome was still in charge of Judea. Roman soldiers were still on the streets of Jerusalem. And secondly, it was written at a time when the early church was really expanding and really starting to spread throughout the area. It was in the early days of the church, and it was a time when people had different ideas and different concepts were beginning to enter into this church structure. So whether it was written in the early 60s or in the mid-70s AD, is really, for our purposes, not really important. It was done at a time when the church was expanding rapidly and when Rome was still in charge of the area. So the when is not really well defined. The who is equally not as easy to interpret as it may seem from the start. But we'll get into that in the next session. This is only the preliminary session for this, trying to see how this format works. So the when we went over, the who we'll get into in the next session. Thanks for joining me. We will be back shortly in a few days or a week or so with lesson number 2. Bye for now.